Hi, I'm Linz. Welcome to Becoming Everwell, a channel where we talk about the ongoing journey of becoming. On today's Life Learning episode for Midlife You, we are talking about the power of physical touch.
I make sense of life by writing about real everyday stuff that makes us who we are. Some of these snapshots are fun, some are more serious. Maybe they'll open up something in you too. Let's grow.
My almost 10-year-old son recently returned home from 3 weeks at sleepaway camp. Although he'd been to camp before, this summer he wanted to try a new, sportier camp. This made sense. He's sporty. But the shift would mean that he'd no longer be at camp with his older brother. He said he'd be fine. We got 4 letters home, and they all expressed homesickness or flat-out dislike for the new camp. Meanwhile, all the camp photos revealed a kid who was clearly not suffering. Fun was being had. I spoke to the camp director twice during the session, and all the counselors and adults in my son's orbit concurred that he seemed happy and engaged. So we chose to have him stay for the duration, sending him love notes of encouragement to find his way, even after receiving this letter that simply says, "Save me, please." As we pulled up to retrieve him, he ran toward us with a huge, unfiltered smile. I barely opened my car door and all 100 pounds of him piled onto me. We hugged for what felt like a full, pure minute. While embracing, I felt the muffled heaves of a cry. He's since told me that they were tears of joy. When we eventually released enough to look at each other, he appeared peaceful and content. He went on to hug Dad and Sis before he took us all on a walking tour of camp. He played baseball, wiffle ball, rugby, tennis, and basketball, and was eager to show us the landscapes where all of those activities took place. He loved archery and took us to the range. He showed us his favorite spot to skip rocks. He tried new foods, which for a notoriously picky eater was a huge deal, and he pointed out his assigned table in the mess hall. He even sang some camp songs to us. He loved the nature program and told us about a frog he found that took up residence on his shoulder one day. He'd also befriended a butterfly that he called Butter, and he marveled that every single day of camp, Butter found him. Butter found us on our tour, too. He brushed his fingertips along shelves of book bindings in the library and pulled out one that he'd read. He showed us decks of cards and where he'd played a favorite game. He learned to play guitar and told us excitedly that he can play Stand By Me. He liked many counselors and his cabin mates, and he relayed stories that led to eye-twinkling smiles, including when he was awarded Camper of the Week. He slept well and loved polar bear plunges into the lake each morning. My husband and I kept giving each other confused telepathic looks. To our surprise, he seemed to love camp. Once we got home that evening, after a long New England drive and a soapy shower, and once the ripest of duffel bag items made their way into the washer, we retired for bedtime. He requested a pillow talk, which is code for an extra long bedtime chat with Mom. A few questions into our talk, I asked him if he'd ever cried at camp, which inadvertently pricked awake tears and some dormant emotions. Turns out, he cried quite a bit, specifically at bedtime in the privacy of his bunk. I'll note that this child is not prone to sadness or separation anxiety. In fact, he's more of a rough and tumble, confident and resilient type. But as we pillow talked, he revealed that although he made friends and had fun, at day's end, he felt lonely. He also shared that he hadn't told these feelings to anyone at camp. Instead, he acted like he was fine. He said that the hardest part of camp was going 3 weeks without a hug. As a former educator of kids myself, I'm aware of the laws and procedures that prevent adults from touching kids in community settings for very good reasons. But for kids who crave the love language of physical touch as a key ingredient in their recipe for wholeness, the casualty of such restrictions could be their well-being. The big difference between last year's camp and this one is that in the past, his brother had been there, and each evening, his brother habitually popped into his cabin to say goodnight. When they told me about this routine last year, I remember being unable to discern if such wholesome cabin visits were welcomed by my younger, kind of cool son. I remember noting that the connection was initiated always by my older son, so I assumed that the bid for affection was more needed by my older son, and my younger son simply acquiesced. Turns out I was wrong. That connection sustained my younger son. He just hadn't known it until he didn't have it. In his letters home, he couldn't articulate why he disliked camp, but now that the emotional pressure valve had released, his sentiment surfaced. He was hug sick. As his mom, this brought on lots of feels. First, a deep gratitude for a brotherly love and a siblingship that, from my vantage point, often looks like anything but love. Second, a heartbreak for the child's instinct to keep heavy emotions bottled up. And third, a validation that all the hugs at every turn, in every mood, have mattered. Some of my hugs have been received with an air of obligatory annoyance, but I'm now certain that they've served as a daily dose of physical tenderness that has been essential. We parents try so hard to connect with our kids without immediate or clear data to determine the efficacy of such efforts, so this feedback is gold. In the days after his return from camp, we started the audiobook, The One and Only Family, the latest release in his favorite book series by Catherine Applegate. We listened as the narrator, a silverback gorilla called Ivan, said this, quote, "I wonder if everyone carries the weight of a secret sadness with them. Perhaps if it weren't secret, it wouldn't be such a burden," end quote. My son and I paused the book and wondered together about Ivan's thought. We made the connection to his sadness at camp and wondered, in retrospect, if camp may have felt better had he talked openly about his need for a hug with a counselor or a friend. I can't be sure if he felt the impact of Ivan's message like I did, but I hope the seed planted into his young heart that he doesn't have to be alone in future sadness. To observe the becoming of a young person is an amazing thing. What a privilege to have a front row seat and to be a trusted ally. Sometimes I feel like I'm already homesick for this stage of life. As the kids slip into older versions of themselves, I already miss them, as strange as it sounds. Toni Morrison's book dedication to her sons in Sula, a novel that's long been my favorite of hers, comes to mind. Quote, "It is sheer good fortune to miss somebody long before they leave you. This book is for Ford and Slade, whom I miss, although they have not yet left me," end quote. I'm not sure if there's a word for the feeling of future nostalgia, but that's the ocean I'm swimming in at present. It's a realization that there will be a time when I'm not able to extract and soothe the sadness of my child, a time when I'm longing for pillow talks and car rides that enable such connection. My role as the primary hug provider will someday be filled, in part, by another or by no one, and so begins that new ache inside my chest. I suppose I hope that enough tough moments happen while they're young so that we have the luxury of navigating emotions together while we can. And to temper my swelling nostalgic heart, I'm working on maintaining my gratitude for the sheer good fortune of being in these waters of motherhood at all. Whether or not my kid returns to sleepaway camp in summers to come, I'm grateful that this season's experience gifted me a deeper knowing of his inner operating system. And I'm hopeful that his newfound self-awareness will give him strength to ask for what he needs down the road. What I know for sure is that hugs matter. In fact, a quick Google search led me to the work of world-renowned family therapist Virginia Satter, who claims that we need 4 hugs a day for survival, 8 hugs a day for maintenance, and 12 hugs a day for growth. I can't help but wonder if many of us quietly live with hug sickness. Sometimes the simplest actions lead to the most profound shift in our wellness. So hug on, my friend, and let's grow. Thanks for being here with me today. I'm happy to tell you that the legacy work branch of my business has officially launched through Everwell. You can go to my website, lindsayhurdy.com, click on the Work with Lindsay page, and you can scroll down to Legacy Work. Click on the Learn More there, and you will get to the site that tells you all about forever letters and how I can help you with the love letters that you need to write when AI doesn't cut it. Your likes, subscribes, and shares all matter so much to me here on YouTube. Thank you. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.
Be sure to like and subscribe and click that bell to get alerts for new posts. I'd be ever grateful.